in store for you all today. And I hope you're interested in learning a little bit about AI as well as Alpha Anywhere and Alpha TransForm, because we have a terrific Developers Day 2025 headed your way. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product here at Alpha Software, and I would like to welcome you all to this year's Developers Day. We don't have a keynote today, so I'm going to keep it really brief, and we're just going to dive right into content. But the first thing I'd like to get into is where you can find a link to all of the sessions. So if you've already logged in and you're looking here at my screen, you should see that there is a link, alphasoftware.com/DevDay 2025-content-portal. Whoops, let me go back to my previous screen. What happened here? Here we go. Here is where you're going to find links to all of the rest of the presentations. Give me a second. I'm just going to take you through it, and I'll take you through today's schedule. So let me go there. Alpha Software, DevDay portal. Okay. And we should be back to showing my screen. Okay, so here at this address, if you've been here, if you've done one of our Dev Days before, this is pretty similar to last year. But basically, for each one of the sessions, there is a link which will take you into the session. And you're probably going to want to bookmark this page, because after the sessions are over, you'll be able to come back here and see the recordings. These sign up for session links will become view recording links. So just a quick rundown of what we have for you today. We're beginning with our welcome, which I'm doing right now, and we're going to move very quickly into Dan Bricklin, our CTO, who will be covering Transform, Progress, and Roadmap. After that, we have folks from Start Software. Jack Byrne and Dan Darkin are going to be giving a really cool presentation on how they use AI in real-world applications in Alpha Anywhere. Coming up at noon, we have Selwyn Ravens, one of our most popular events that we have here, going over the roadmap for Alpha Anywhere and showing you the stuff that we've put in since the last time we have done one of these. Next up, we have someone from our development team, Sian Chambliss, who is going to be taking a practical look at how AI can be used in your applications, both to build applications, but also to add features that your end users will be able to take advantage. And I think you're going to really like this session as well. Coming up, we have a couple of exciting things dealing with technology partners. These are people who have things that you can offer as your own in your own Alpha Anywhere applications. And our VP of Sales is going to be taking you through those, showing you some examples of how they're being used. Then from 3:30 to 4:15, we have the entire development team at your disposal. They'll be here for your questions. So start thinking of your questions now, and that'll be a roundtable panel discussion this afternoon. That will be followed, like we do every year, with our annual Bit of Fun tradition with Greg Bowling. So I think you're going to have a great time here today. Just a quick note, I've heard today that we've been having some issues with Cloudflare. You probably know who Cloudflare is. They sit in front of most of the websites on the web. And from time to time, people haven't found our site today. So if that's the case, just do keep trying it while we try to resolve any problems that we have there. But for now, if you can make it to this page and just click on each of these sessions, it'll register you and you'll be ready to go. So let's begin. Hello, Dan, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and share you, let you share your screen.
Okay, and let me just say hi.
Take a look at what's new. Yeah, and say hi. Hey, presenter. Hey there.
Same as last year.
Same as last year. I'm going to click OK. Sorry, I should have been on camera as well. Hello and welcome, everyone.
Let's see. Now I get to choose which screen we want. Background and taskbar. Oh, we can do that. Why not? Here we go. And you're seeing my screen?
Let me take a look. I am seeing your screen now. So I'm going to drop off camera. I suggest you do the same. That way, when we have a recording, they'll get to see the full screen. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. And I get rid of that. And I'm back in. So, yet again, Transform. Let's talk about it. I don't know how many of you are using TransForm, but those that are, this will help you see some features that you may not have known about that we have, and get an idea of where we're going. For those of you who aren't using it, maybe you'll see that there's some features that'll make it more useful, that you may want to be able to use it for your needs or your customers' needs. So let's start. Last year we announced a whole lot of stuff. We, had quick link. We had an on-device data builder. We started making it easier to get to the web filler and QR code decoding in the web and two-factor authentication, and a variety of things enhancing the dashboard. But one of the big ones is that we were getting ready to support the new TransForm Central Home tab design, the main place where you go to control your use of TransForm as an administrator and sometimes as a user. Is TransForm Central. That's transform.alphasoftware.com, and we redesigned it to be a much more powerful, much better looking and usable system than we had before, and put a lot more stuff into it. And this was getting ready for that. Now, what's happened over the last year since the date of the last DevDay? Well, the new TransForm Central Home tab design has happened and has been constantly enhanced, and additional things have been put into it and stuff, and that's people seem to be happy with that. We've improved the dashboard editing. There were some issues in there. For example, the font was like Arial rather than a monospace font, and there were a variety of other things about editing. But one that affected performance is that when you're doing in the dashboard, one of the things that you do is that you can filter your data on the server before bringing it down to analyze in the dashboard, and that can be done both with SQL using a database, or it can be done programmatically on the server. There were issues that with how much you could handle in terms of data, because SQL could only filter on the top level fields of the TransForm, the form instance records. Well, now we can filter on form data JSON, on some of the form data JSON values. This lets us do faster and much higher capacity searches. We have customers that are using an awful lot of form instances, and this lets them handle years of data and being able to do searches across that. Some minor things like path names and TPL templating didn't allow underbar. Well, now they do. We added the AI form builder. This is a way to quickly create the beginning of a form definition. So if you say, well, I want to try TransForm, or I have a particular use, but I don't have a form to copy from. Let me get something to start from. Well, we have a way using AI to be able to do that we built, and that lets you in a conversational way, but with an interface that lets you go forwards and backwards nice and easily, and actually create form definitions. And hopefully I'll be able to show you that if Cloudflare allows. We added form display names to the dashboard and management console, so that when you're showing a particular form, not only do you know the ID of that type of form, but you can also show the display name, the longer name. And there were some additions and fixes and all in TPL. And now integer fields, this is in forms. When you have a form and you have an integer field, there was a button, a +10, +1, -1, and -10 button. They're now optional, and you can turn them on and off. You can have ±1, ±10, or none of those if you want. There's a new TPL function, which is add new form. This lets you programmatically in a form create a new form to be able to let the user, so let's say you're filling out a form and the user has given you certain information and now you know you need an additional form for them to fill out later. You can do that using the add new form function so that programmatically you can decide and set up the initial values for that form. We have something new called the anonymous forms functionality that I'll just talk about in much greater detail soon. The web filler, as opposed to the mobile filler, the one that runs in the browser, can now upload files, so you can get audio files. It doesn't work on iOS devices, but it does work on in the web filler working on regular browsers on laptops or Android. And we've been adding a variety of things to the filler to help with support, so that when there are any issues, we can talk to the user and be able to get data that we need to be able to help them resolve their issues. And one of them is the show all instance rows raw data. It's a tools for support that lets us look at all of the form instances that are currently on a mobile device, and we have ways to be able to use that for support and to help people not lose data. These special things we have in support mean that even when there's some connectivity issues and other issues and problems, we've been able to, in almost all cases, but in many cases, been able to salvage data. So once you've entered it in the form, there's a good chance that we'll be able to, even in bad situations, be able to get that data into the system. There's a new TPL function in the filler to copy text to the clipboard. This can be useful for something where you want to be able to get into another app on your mobile device, for example, or on the browser, where you want to be able to create something through TPL and copy it to the clipboard and then go into that other app and use it. There's also export to clipboard. If you're on the mobile filler, this is where it's storing the photos and audio on in the file system, so that you can be offline and not connected to the internet in such a situations like today. There's now a way to be able to take the photos and export them to the clipboard as a data URI, which can then be pasted into other apps on your mobile device, and perhaps use that to be able to get even photos off when there are connectivity and when there are various other issues that mean that you can't sync the data. We haven't had to use much, then there's other support for this. This stuff, a lot of this is there just in case. In general, a lot of these support tools have been put in, and then it would be months or months before we may even need them, but it's nice to know they're there because you can't just add it later on. To make things easier for recovery and other purposes, the file names of media like photos now in the file name include the form instance ID. It makes it easier for us to be able to find images and stuff that may be that maybe there's questions about where they uploaded correctly, where they actually uploaded. This has been helpful in certain situations. When you're editing a form in the filler, there's the table of contents. That is a quick a way to be able to quickly jump to any part of a form. And that's available through a menu item in the filler. But it now has an info button that will show the form instance ID and other information that might be useful for you to support customers in the field, and it'll copy it to the clipboard, so it's really easy to be able to share that. It used to be much more roundabout to be able to get certain information like that you might want to be able to send to support when you are supporting customers. And we had neglected to put the added to queue notification, which is something that your account can have, that your user account can have. We've added it to the fillers user preferences, so you don't have to use the central to be able to modify that value. More stuff for the dashboard. A lot of work on the dashboard. We've added the ability to use TPL to provide list tile rows. What this means is that if you're able to now, instead of just having a list that just shows form instances for each row, you can actually use TPL to programmatically make a list that scrolls nicely in a tile. And I'll demonstrate that later. And you can put grid lines. You can turn on grid lines optionally or turn them off, so you can have much more control over the look of the list. So for example, whether or not you're using TPL to provide the rows, some people like using alternating background colors or tints, or control grid lines their own way. We've added what's called Prolog TPL to tile. So for within the dashboard, you can have TPL that is run before the tile is rendered. This lets us do things like programmatically control the height, width, and whether there's a new row or not, and some other things about a tile dynamically. And all of this, a lot of this stuff is to make the dashboard much more powerful and useful. People are really using this dashboard for lots of analysis and control, and being able to control things. And you want to be able to customize, often dynamically, the dashboard, and we've added abilities to do that. And there's for the a list tile, we now have a list row, $-list rows, that lets you actually edit those the rows that are going to show up in the list. There's a $-hide, and lets you show and hide tiles, which is that way, if let's say you have different configurations or whatever, you can programmatically instantly hide and show different different tiles to be able to change the way things look. So that if you can't programmatically change enough of the look of a particular tile, you can configure multiple tiles with the different looks that you want and just show and hide them as you need them. We now have more tile heights: very small, small, medium, large, extra large, extra, extra large, and extra, extra, extra large. And the widths can now be very short, small, medium, large, extra large, extra, 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 and full width, which is something that we added last year, the ability to be full width. This year, we added the ability for one of the tiles to have full height. What this means is that it takes up the height from where it is to the bottom of the screen of the browser. And if you make the browser bigger, then that tile gets bigger. And if you make it smaller, it gets smaller. So this lets you have, be able to have, you could have just one tile on the screen and have it fill the entire screen if you want. This is useful for certain graphs where if you have lots of data, and it's also useful for some new features that we have, where you may end up having some tiles that have an awful lot of stuff going on where you want to see it. At the top of the dashboard, I'm going to show you a lot of this, most of this stuff, but at the top of the dashboard, there's a header, and right now it had just user inputs where you could change various values to be able to affect the way that the dashboard is operating. Well, now you can put text before it and text after it, and those can have actions that you can click on and be able to run TPL functions to be able to make other changes to the system. And this gives you better formatting of the dashboard to be able to, and you can put HTML in there and all, and you still have the user inputs can still be inside of it. When you have a list, when you have these user values and you get a drop-down list or a button list, they now can have TPL provided values. In other words, you're going to be able to programmatically change what the list is. Previously, the list was a fixed list, a static list of choices. So you might have small, medium, and large, or you may have, you know, certain dates or something. This lets you have, for example, a list of all the different stores that are in the data. You could actually look at the data itself and then dynamically produce a list to choose and produce subsets of that list for filtering or other purposes. And the list user inputs may now have multi-value selection. In other words, you can have nothing selected, one of them selected, 2, 3, 4, whatever, and unselected. They would be separated by commas in the value, but this gives you the ability to say, I want this one, and that one, but not this other one. We've been working on the chart, on improving the looks of charts. One of them is improving long X labels so that they can wrap to give you a little more space, to be able to handle longer labels when there's a lot of narrow, let's say, bars or stuff like that. And the text tiles not only have HTML where you can put whatever look you want in there, you can also instead turn it, use an iframe to be able to display another external web page from somewhere else inside the frame, and you can communicate with it so that you can create your own tiles, types of tiles, for example, a map tile or one that uses a different type of visualization, and you can be able to get the data from the that's dynamically gotten by the dashboard and be able to provide that to this other web page and display it. And through the use of full width and full height, you can be able to make it pretty large, and so you can put some pretty cool stuff in there. And the filler now is just getting an iframe editor. This means that you'll be able to use an external web page in the filler, for example, for setting values, so that when you would click on a field, instead of getting into our keyboard, keypads or slider, or the name the date choosers and stuff like that, you'll be able to use a web page that you create to be able to do the interaction. And we'll get into that more. So the AI form builder, let me hold my breath here and see what's happened. Let's go here and let's see, let me just check this and see if it's back. No, it's not back. That's too bad. what we have now is that when you go to create a new form, you can use the AI form builder. And the AI form builder, which I cannot show you right now, because if I go to it, it will say that it's also up in Cloudflare. What it does is it says, it shows on the screen a place to have a dialogue, and on the right, it shows what looks like the filler, showing you the form. And what you do is you type in something like, I'd like a form that, it says, what type of form do you want? It says, I want a form that is for inspecting, a bakery is one of the examples that I use, and then you hit return, and it goes off to a ChatGPT or something, and then it comes back with the definition of a form, and suddenly you see the form with all of the fields for you to look at in the sample. And then you can then say, well, add a signature field, and then it'll add a signature field. And then you can say, why did you add that field? And it will give you, it will hopefully give you a useful answer. And then you can go and say, well, I would rather call it this, and then it will change that. And then it has forward and backward buttons, so you can go back and forth through the conversation to be and look at the result that would have been, and then restart from a different place. So therefore, you can have you can do basically it's redo and undo to be able to construct what you want. Once you've gotten the beginnings of a form, or maybe it's enough of a form for you, you push a button and give it a name if you want, or let it create the name. And next thing you know, it will show up in your list of forms of different form types, and you can go off and you can just go to the designer and you can either start filling it out, or go to the designer and enhance it, add other features that the AI was not doing for you, make any changes, and it's now just a regular form that you can work with. However, the AI, when it creates it, in the comments field for each of the commands in there, gives you sort of a reason of why it put that particular form in, an explanation of what that field is and why it has it. It puts in section titles and stuff like that. So it's a nice, simple use of AI to be able to, get you started, get you past writer's block, or let you test out TransForm, even if you don't have a specific use right now. Or if you want to, let's say you want to be able to show TransForm to one of your customers, and you want to be able to create a sample form for them for their field of business, you can be able to create it using that. So that is the AI form builder. And we'll do Q&A afterwards, I guess, unless if there's, I guess, Dave, you'll break in if there are any.
I'll break in if there's a question that's appropriate to interrupt you for. Sure.
I don't know if has anybody tried this? I'm wondering if any of the people there have tried the AI form builder.
Quick show of hands here, or if you want to say in the comments section. I know a bunch of people have tried it. We've got a yes and a yes and a yes and a not yet, but it looks cool.
Oh, cool. Okay, so that's right. So success in that's actually been used by people, and success in that showing it to people makes them teaches them about that. Okay, now let's get into anonymous forms. We had this meeting. There are people who want to be able to use the web browser to fill out and submit a new TransForm form instance, but they don't want that user to have to log in. They want to be able to, have, send something into an email or put it on their website and say, click here to be able to sign up or something like that. What we have are anonymous links URLs. that a TransForm account administrator using one of the configuration tabs in TransForm Central can create an anonymous link. And this URL now can be used by these people outside the organization or within your organization. And it's just like normally filling out a TransForm form. And I'll show you a little bit about what that is. So the user just has to click on a link or scan a QR code. We'll provide the QR code for you if you want, and you start filling out the form. And you can have it that once they're there, when it's finished, once you've submitted a form, it goes back to, hey, fill it out again, fill out another one and another one. So you could actually make a kiosk where you could have a mobile, like a tablet or a laptop or a computer of some sort, and the same type of form can be repeatedly created by people that walk up to it, and when they push save, they walk away, and then the next person gets to start a new one. And in order to do kiosk mode and a lot of other things, because this is people who may not be familiar with TransForm, there are these extra screens, and you can specify when the form administrator creates each particular anonymous link, you can specify the contents of a start screen and a completed screen. And so you can introduce it, you can put your own logos there, you can, branding of various sort, you can tell them what to do next and stuff like that. There's even one of the screens you can go to does CAPTCHA type checking. So that's the I am not a robot type stuff. So you can put that in if you want. That's provided for you automatically. You just say in your specification for the link being able to do that. You can't use this feature unless it's been enabled for your account. And there are various limits to how many of what you can create depending on your account. So talk to the person at Alpha who you work with on your account, and they can enable this to let you try it out or to use it for various situations. So this is an alternative way to having named logged in users and being able to use anonymous users for what you're doing. So let's show you some of what this is conceptually. There's a anonymous forms account configuration that is stored with the data for your account, and it is a list that has for each of the anonymous forms, different ones that you've defined. It has the state. It can be active, which means that link works. It can be paused, which means that we don't want anybody to create new ones right now. But if you started, you can continue with it, and we might turn it back on. And suspended, where it's as if it doesn't exist anymore, but you want to keep it around in your list, perhaps to copy from it or to look at it for other purposes before you delete it from this list. So you can make it in any of those forms. Each of the links has a special unique ID for that particular link that tells you, look at this row of information. It says what particular type of form am I going to be producing when I click this link. And then there are other settings. There are the limits. You can, on a per link basis, say, I only allow 10 of these. I only allow 1,000 of them. I don't want this to go, if somebody comes in and there's an attack against you where people try to create lots and lots of forms just to fill up, you can put limits to stop that. And you can have a description so you'll know what it is for your own purposes. So this line is used to create the actual link. The link looks like transform.applesoftware.com/ a non-form.html, and it has the ID that's over here. It can also optionally have other you can create it with other parameters that you've decided that you want to be able to pass on to the form that the form has access to. The form has access, and you do that through other settings. So that when you click on this link, the start screen might show up if you've configured it. If it's configured to have a start screen, I believe it's the default, the normal default, but you can change the defaults for everything. You can change the defaults for just about everything that's here. There are account-wide defaults and system-wide defaults, and you can copy from. So the start screen will show up, and then from that, if you say go on, there's the details window where you get to fill out the form, and then you have the save screen. And then when you push save, after you've pushed save, and then that's been saved. There are many screens to switch from, and you can use TPL to do all sorts of stuff, like control the way through this. This is the way you can be able to set up kiosk mode. So for example, when the person finishes, it goes to a screen that says, thank you, it's saved. You want to do another one, and then gets you into, you want to ready to start another one to get you started, and stuff like that. On the roadmap for the future is to add some timers to these so that we can let you just, if somebody sort of sits there, it automatically switches from one screen to another or something, or reminds you stuff. The screens we have are start, you're editing. This is when you're editing here, it's saved. I'm restarting, I'm paused. You know, it's a paused one, so the start would say, I'm sorry, this is paused. You know, come back later or whatever. You know, we're filled. Try again next week. This, you could put one for the abandon, where you get to say like, sorry, this is no longer, this thing is no longer available ever. Show the CAPTCHA. Was CAPTCHA success? Was CAPTCHA failure? Try again. You know, I've hit the maximum number of limits.
Cool. Dan, before you go on,
yeah.
Can I just show off just a couple of, share my screen, just show a couple of use cases that we've gone over in earlier things that might give people some ideas as to how they could use anonymous forms that'll,
Okay, should we just, why don't I just finish this and then you'll show yours?
That sounds good.
This is all I'm talking about. This default values for the screened content and all the other settings, there's a cascade, which makes it easier to construct them. So that even though you may have dozens and dozens of these forms, you may have one of these links for each person or something, like for each field or whatever, but you want to be able to change the logos or change the start or the error screens or something globally. You can do that. It's set up with a nice cascade. And there you can have a form ID of a particular form definition, and it copies the TPL out of that, adds it to this particular form, so that you can, for example, have TPL that you use in all of your screens that you want to be able to use, not have to type that into the definition of the link, and you can just change it whenever you change it in that function in the designer. That will automatically update all sorts of anonymous links. Okay, Dave.
Very cool. All right, so I'm going to make myself the presenter, share my screen. And so recently we were.
I haven't shown it in operation though.
You haven't, right? Exactly.
No,
so I'll show you a couple of examples, and then I'll hand it right back to you. But some of the things that we're looking at when we came up with this idea for anonymous forms would be things like event registration, or visitor badge generation, or check-in. In other words, just the notion that a person doesn't have to have an account on a system, but you still want to collect information, basically maybe not from people who work at your company, but people who interact with people who work at your company. So things like maintenance requests or delivery confirmation or digital waiver signing and things like that. were all the use cases that we had been thinking about. So it would be things like this. It's perfectly now set up for doing kiosks, for example. So you could do one of the how satisfied were you with your experience today sort of kiosks, or a scan to register for a warranty sort of QR code that you could put in a box that could take you immediately to an anonymous form in TransForm, or a way to scan out equipment. Say you have an equipment room and you want to, have QR codes on each thing and say, scan this out, and it knows exactly who scanned it out and when they took it. You could do feedback forms, for example. In this case, it was like a carpet installation who said, hey, take a quick survey. And, how did we do today on your installation? You could do feedback on training confirmation. And we did an example with a visitor badge kiosk where someone sort of fills in, their name, their company, who they're going to visit, takes a picture of themselves, and can actually generate a visitor badge at the end of it. So those are just some of the ideas of having an anonymous, in other words, not named user version of TransForm and some of the use cases behind it. So thanks for letting me interrupt. I'm going to make you the presenter again.
Thank you. Now, let me show my screen. And is that the right screen?
It says anonymous forms.
That's it. Okay.
All right.
So let's see. Can I show an anonymous form? Oh, maybe I won't show an anonymous form because we don't. They were using. It was using Cloudflare. We can try again. I can try. Let's see. If do we have it here? Try again. Ooh, look at that. Just in time.
Oh, fantastic.
Aha. Go to configure.
There's nothing like a live demo, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Anonymous forms. Let's add a new one. Okay, it's starting out active. And I can say for DevDay. 25. Oops. Form type. Let's choose a particular form. And this is the form type that'll be used to get the additional TPL. I'm not going to do that. You can have your limits and stuff like that. So now we're done. And I save it. It's awaiting save. So let's save it. And now I can, if I want to, I have a QR code. But if I click here and that's it. This is the default one, but it could say anything. It could have your logo, or it could not be there and go immediately into filling the form. And we go here and we put in the date and the location is my desk. Okay. And we do a save, uploads it to the server. What was that? Sounds like there is another Cloudflare problem. And then that would then save it, and then I would go back to here and go to the management, and it would be there. Sorry. Okay, let us go back to moving along. Dashboard.
Can I interrupt you for one more anonymous form question? Because this is actually a pretty cool one. Someone said, listen, for a TransForm account holder, if you're a TransForm account holder, can you require 2FA for anonymous forms instead of CAPTCHA? Although if you're using it as anonymous, you wouldn't be using it as a TransForm account holder. But the question is, could you use 2FA in
how would you 2FA?
And I think that using the new filler function where you can call out to an iframe, that would be possible.
Yes and no. It depends on how our 2FA is all done server side with all sorts of cool stuff. Here, what you probably want to do is that you wouldn't know which user, so you would have the screens that you're seeing at the beginning, those screens, you could have them using TPL and send requests, and server requests and whatever back and forth to a server. You could be able to do the things to do the 2FA yourself. You'd have to basically roll your own 2FA. It's not, 100% that a user could go into developer tools and get around it and stuff like that. But you could do something along those lines. But it was not designed for that reason. It was designed for really anonymous, or where you're picking up the name. Now you can pick up the screens that you put up can have input fields, so you can have them type into the input fields, and then the TPL can be able to get you might be able to get access to that in your HTML can get access to it to give it to the TPL. So, but it's not designed specifically for that. But if there's a particular useful use case, we could add something of that sort to it.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Okay, dashboard. This was the list that I showed you before of added functionality. We added it to for additional visualizations and enhanced control of layout. We are realizing that one of the major advantages of TransForm over other form system is our dashboard, the analytics, and the ability to use it as a control panel to be able to actually affect things and be able to do things from to do operations directly from a dashboard that had dynamically filtered lists and stuff like that, and different visualizations. So that was sort of guiding what the type of features that we've been adding is to do that. So one of the things we have is this. Go back. Oops. Here is the template format. In template format, you usually have just text, but now you can have, rather than putting in an iframe using HTML, you can automatically do it by basically saying the template format is not HTML, it's an iframe. And you put in the source URL of what you want to be able to go out to be able to display. So for example, I use this particular one, and this is what showed up on my screen. And you can say, does this URL support TransForm dashboard messaging, where I can send messages back and forth so this can get data? And you can say yes or no on that. If you're using messaging, a browser has a part of JavaScript in a browser is the window.postMessage messaging API. This lets one web page communicate with another web page and back again in a secure manner that they can't really get to the data of each except under the control of this messaging API that copies data back and forth for it. And we've implemented that so that, for example, when you bring up your page, it has you could add some simple functions, and we have in the documentation, we have tell you how to do that. We can send a message like, get a particular piece of data from the dashboard, set something in the dashboard, execute an action, execute a TPL function over here, or trigger a refresh of the whole screen. And then if you do a get, you can get a message coming back saying got. In order to do this, when the URL that you put in here has added to it a query that includes a frame ID, so that your server, your web page on your server can send back here and say, you authorized me, here's the magic token that you authorized me to send you a message, so that just you can't have some message come from somebody else or from some other one that's hanging around. Let's demonstrate the dashboard. Let's see. Dare I I'm trying to think. Well, I could try. Let's see. Oh, we're saying that there's some problem, maybe some problems. No. Let's see. No, let's go here. So this is, this I'm running in off of my machine. And what you're seeing is this is text in the header. And it has in it the setting for full height, which is blank. And the TPL list is 1 for first, 2 for second. I can click on it. You can see it says 2 for second. And it has some, these are user inputs. And then there's some text after the user inputs, and you can put what you want. And you can even put in action and tile actions so that you can make this, can give you more controls to do whatever you want down here. So for example, if I say hide a tile, this tile has in it, if I go to the tile, it has what's called prologue TPL. And in the prologue TPL, it said $-hide is get the dashboard user input, which is the one I have at the top, and look for hide 1. And if it's true, this is true. If it's false, this is false. So therefore, if I say hide a tile, that tile is hidden. That's how easy. And that's why we have the prologue, because the prologue is able to do things like make the width small, make the width large. I can change these dynamically. This is not set, but I can now say yes. I can say no. I can have just no. I can have neither of them. So I can do those. That's now available. And this list, this says it's for each form ID of the 98 filtered rows. It tells you how many there are. This is set. Let's edit the tile and let's see the template text for each row. We go back to the prologue. In this prologue, we say the width is the tile input width, the tile height, and this is being able to hide it. There's another hide one, but now let's start with form IDs. I go through and I find out all of the form IDs by form ID. I count how many of them are, and then I sort it. And then I make a thing that has the list row consist of this information, of the name and the count. And then the template is the row form ID and the row count. And that's how we get this list here. And it has the grid I can turn on and off. Here, I have a list of all, dynamically, a list of all of the different form types, the types of forms that were downloaded in from that I've actually created one of. And my test account, so there's lots here. But if I go and say, let's say, demo setup, there's only one of those, okay? And if I go up to 5S audit, there are 2 of those. So you get to see, see that you can control that. Let's see if I can show you that in the prologue. Let's see, functions, number of forms, user inputs, current value. And it says that this is a drop-down button list that's not a static list, but it uses TPL to make a list of, and then yes and no and whatever. This is how I create that list. So I can now programmatically create that list. Here, when I make this narrower, this is wrapping. We're still working on the features to improve the look of the graphs and stuff like that, the charts. A lot of these features are right now in final beta. They have not, this is version 3.4, which is not yet in on production, but should be on the production shortly. And let me show you a full height. This is now full height because it has in it in the prologue. Full height is get the full height and get the width from that. So I can now, and notice that when it goes full height, everything after it is now not there anymore. But if I do full height, and if it does the sizing appropriately. And one last thing here. This is, if we look at this tile, it is a template, and it is a template with an iframe, and it goes out and gets this URL. In this case, it happens to be on my server, so I can just put there. It's given a title of, when I say the tile equals dash tile num, which this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 or something. And the number of rows is $ all rows, which is all the rows that have been filtered. Give me that number there. And then does it support messaging? Yes, it supports messaging. So what you see here is this is 0, 1, 2, 3. If I hide that and redo it, it tells you which one of the ones it's supposed to be. 0, 1, 2. This is, there are 326 rows, and let's see, this is there's the magic form ID. I can get user inputs. So let's go down here to, in my case here, I'm just doing a console.log. If you look at the source of this, this has a console.log saying I got a command saying I got the value of tile user inputs, and user input 1 is no, dashboard user inputs, user input 1 is yes, full height no, this hide 1 is, so this lets you be able to get all sorts of, I can get rows. Let's erase this and get rows. And this now is 640 kilobytes of data, which is the all of the row data of all of the rows that were gotten by the dashboard. So you can now use that to do whatever you want. I can execute an action. So let's execute an action here. This action is test action, and it gives it test value. And I can set the global, I can set a global value, I can set values. Let's set this to yes, and let's set this to no. So you can make changes here, and I can force a full refresh if you want. That full refreshed all of the tiles. So that is, that's that. Let's see, let's go back to, that's the dashboard. Have I shown you everything? I think so. And finally, the filler iframe editor. The TransForm filler has functionality called the iframe editor. It's a screen that comes up. It's a panel card that comes up, but it looks like a field with a body that is an iframe. So, and the contents of the iframe can come from web pages on servers outside of the TransForm system, or in a mobile device, it can come from on-device data. Or if it's on a web page, then you get, it uses the the cloud path for the on-device data. So this means that you can define the page that you want to see there, whatever you want to see there. And even if you're not connected on a mobile device, you might be able to run what you need to run. But that web page, if it wants, can go out to other places on the web to do its things. So for example, if you want to do extra authentication, you can have this come up and it would go off and do your authentication using some authentication system if you want, return a magic token that matters to you, and then you can then assign that to a field and use that field to say that I've, so for example, you've gotten a signature of some sort. You've gotten an encrypted signature that you know the date, time when that was done, and that you've done two-factor authentication on that person through this web page, and that's now stored in your form. And when your form is saved back to our server, you have that in it. And you can display whatever content you want. You can interact with the filler, so you can get form instance information, you can get the name of the user, you can get a variety of useful things that you might want to interact with it. So we can do data acquisition, identity verification, display, and to do it, you can have a button or an event or something like that to be able to bring it up. You basically, you can have an action button or an on changed event. You just do show iframe of the source, and that's the URL that you want to go to, and optional, and you can have options, which are an object. You tell it which TPL function will, in your form, will process any messages from this, and you tell it which text to put at the top of this message. And the API back and forth is you can get values, all these different, lots of different values. You can set top level field values directly with a very simple command. You can do an action, which means that you can send any object back to be processed by your action function. You can hide and show this done button up here. By default, the done button is not there because it's not changing anything unless you want it to, and you want to be able to control what's happening down here. You don't want this. If this is enabled, then this sends a message to you saying, hey, they pushed the done button, do what you want. And then you can also cancel. This can't tell this to put this away. So let's show you the iframe editor. Here's an iframe editor. I have a URL, and I have a function is the function, and iframe editor title. This just calls that up. And here we have a sample web page. And some of the output comes down here. Let me erase that. So I can get form data. And this gets me, it's got, I've asked it for form data, and this gets you all of the values you saw before. There's the URL, there are the options, and the other value is now blank. I can execute an action just like that other one. And this action also gave a result, and the result came back, and it sends a return value. I can set a value. So if you remember over here, the other value is blank. I can set this value to DevDay 25 and set the value. And if I go back here, DevDay 25 has been set. I can close the editor. I can get all sorts of other data. Here we go. I got the options, the account ID. What's the environment? I'm native am I native mobile or not? Browser did this, edit form, value this, username. You even get the language. So I know that my language is sent for French, that if I can do something with it, I can get the language value. And here I can set disable done. Let's do this. So now if I click this, this says you are done. Since you're done, you could do a close. So that's the iframe editor. Planning for next year. Well, you know, we listen to customers and their needs, so we don't necessarily know all of the things we're going to be adding over the next year, but we do know some of them because we've already started them, and they're already in test or far into design and stuff. We have system audit trails for form definitions and form instances, so that if you want to, you'll be able to know that every time a form definition is changed, there's an audit trail of the change and who did the change. The same thing for form instances, that every time you modify the instance, there's needs for audit trails from some of our customers. We're working on other additional account level data stores, so you don't have to use your own data to be able to easily edit data stores that are accessible to TransForm in all various places, to keep, for example, lists or lists of store IDs, or equipment numbers or stuff like that, usernames. You can put all sorts of data that you would want to have access in TransForm. And we're putting in scheduled repeated tasks, cron jobs, to be able to do things like auto dispatch, to be able to say, well, let me go out to Salesforce and find this, and if this happens, then I want to dispatch a form to a queue, or I want to dispatch a form to a particular user, and you can monitor, has somebody responded to it, have they done it? We're working on that type of things. And that's it. I have time for some Q&A.
Yes, so let me see. I'm not seeing a lot here. Someone's saying the system audit trails is huge, so people are really loving that. It looks like TransForm at this second is up if you want to demonstrate the AI builder.
Oh, okay.
If it's not, I have it captured in my browser, but it might be just as easy for you to pop it open in
I can go into
TransForm Central, and hopefully it will not make a liar of me on this time.
Let's see what happens here. If I go down here,
yep,
and go plus and say AI builder.
That's looking a lot better.
Okay, here's so here it says the form purpose, and it's down here. So we say, let's do a form, and hang tight. We're fetching information. It goes out. And here it's looking like a phone, and I can rotate it to see how it would look. Of course, we don't know if that's affecting OpenAI or not, do we?
No, it looks like it's working.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Sweet treat. So not only, a useful thing here is, not only is it creating the fields, it's also creating the data. Okay. So for example, this is the condition and stuff like that, good, average, poor, etc. Right? It's actually acting like a real form, so you get to see what the thing is like. You can actually try it out. This is the real filler that's over here. So let's now say, that's it. Does it have, there's an image. Let's just ask it to add a signature. Okay, and now it adds a signature. Keep for waiting, 8 seconds. This usually takes about About 15 seconds.
15 to 20, yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Go down to the bottom. There, type to sign. There you can sign if you want. So this shows you that. And then say, now let's get rid of that. So you can revert. Now I have one that doesn't have it. I can go back or I can restore. I can go back and forth as I want in terms of this. And now let me do a save. And bakery inspection, bakery store inspection. It's made up a name, but it suggests one for you.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. It's now added to my list. And now if I go here, edit the form definition. This is to get us ready for AI stuff, right? And if you look at it, so there it is. And if we edit the form commands, it has a comment. There's the heading, main heading for bakery inspection. The name of the bakery, name of the being inspected, their store name, okay? And heading for each equipment item, okay? And condition of equipment, e.g. good needs repair, okay? Etc. So that's to show you what we've done there, and you can then just use it as you see fit.
Fantastic. Okay. We have one, it looks like time for one last question. And this person is just a little bit confused about anonymous forms. So they said, listen, if I've got, they're a recent user of TransForm, and they said if they have a profile and it's got a display name and all that, and you create an anonymous account within that profile, will that not still display the profile name and not anonymous? And I think that to explain that a little better would be to say that anonymous is a function within your account. So you can get a certain number of anonymous forms that may come as a package, and those are purely anonymous. So if you send out a link to somebody, they're not going to see your username or your user profile. They're not going to see anything.
You don't come in as user. In fact, let me show you that.
Yeah.
Let me
okay.
go back.
Good.
And if I go back to where do we have an anonymous? Did we have an anonymous over here? Let's redo that one.
Okay. Gimbal walk. Okay, great. Yeah.
Okay. And if I go to info, the person is anonymous user.
Right.
They're not me. Okay. For this account. Now, when you create the link, you can put a name there. You can say that this is always, a particular name, named user that I will use later, and it will have that name in the form instance. That user doesn't have to be real or whatever, but it will show up in the management console when you look at, or anything, when you look at a list of forms, that will be the person. But
right.
this comes in as anonymous. Now, for various permissions, such as what statuses you can set and things like that, there are ways of using anonymous. Can be one of the user roles, and when you're running this way, you're running with the user role of anonymous. Okay, does that
Excellent.
answer the question?
That looks like it should. All right, good enough.
Right as we hit 10.
That was sort of it, because we're coming up right now on 10:15. So quick reminder, you can go to alphasoftware.com. And actually, Dan, if you don't mind doing this, go to our alphasoftware.com, just to our homepage.
Okay, so if I go here.
Yeah.
And I go here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind everyone where the links are. So if you show up to our homepage today, yep, just.com, that's fine. And you scroll down, keep scrolling to the middle of the page, you're going to find a link for today's Dev Day. It's under TriCab. A little further. There it is, Alpha Dev Day. Oops.
Look at that. There we go.
So click on that. Scroll down, click on sign up. Yep. And that again is going to take you to this page, DevDay 2025-content-portal. And again, this is everything that you need for today. So if you came in late, just know this is the page that you need. So
And
Dan, thank you
hey,
very
Dan,
much. Yeah, go ahead.
if you come up with a question, say, oh my God, I should have asked. We have Ask the Developers later, and I will be back.
Excellent. He will be back at 3:30. Thank you very much, Dan, for presenting this morning. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Our next session will be at 10:45 Eastern, and it's going to be Start Using AI with Start Software. A little pun that we did there. So I hope to see you in about 30 minutes. Thank you again. Bye-bye.